The turkey was still steaming when my mother decided to ruin Christmas. We were halfway through dinner, the table crowded with bowls of mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce untouched, silverware clinking in that forced, too polite rhythm families use when they're pretending everything is fine. I was seated at the far end like always, close enough to pass dishes, far enough to be ignored. 28 years old, the invisible daughter. Blair. The one nobody worried about because I'd learned early how not to need anything. My mother, Linda, dabbed her mouth with a napkin and smiled in that way that meant trouble. She didn't look at me at first. She never did. Instead, she turned toward my older sister, Vanessa, glowing at the center of the table like a spotlight had been installed just for her. You know, Mom said loudly for everyone to hear, Vanessa just bought a beautiful house. 3 bedrooms. A real adult home. She finally shifted her gaze toward me, eyes sharp, assessing. When will you finally settle down, Claire? The words landed heavy, like a fork dropped on porcelain across from me. Vanessa's lips curled into a smirk she didn't bother hiding. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, enjoying the moment. Seriously, she added, slicing into her turkey with dramatic precision. When are you going to grow up and get your life together? That was the cue. The familiar one. Every holiday had a version of this scene. Birthdays, graduations, even casual Sunday dinners. Vanessa's achievements held up like trophies, my life presented as a cautionary tale. I was always figuring things out, always taking my time, always one step behind in their eyes. No one asked what I was working on. No one cared how quiet consistency looked when it didn't come with bragging rights. My father, Robert, stayed silent like usual, eyes fixed on his plate, already checked out. He'd mastered the art of absence without leaving the room. I felt the old reflex kick in, the urge to shrink, to deflect, to laugh it off. That was the role I'd been trained for. The easy daughter. The low-maintenance Wanda, but this time, something was different. I set my fork down calmly. Mild. Not tight. Not forced. Calm. I already did, I said. The table paused, forks hovering midair. Vanessa blinked. My mother frowned, confused. I just didn't invite anyone who doubts me. The silence was instant and absolute. Forks froze. Faces went red. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Vanessa's smirk evaporated, replaced by something closer to disbelief. Even my father finally looked up. For a long second. No one spoke. Because in that moment, they realized something had happened without them. That the daughter they'd dismissed, compared, and quietly written off hadn't just caught up, she'd moved on. Quietly. Completely. And here's the part that makes this story different. I hadn't borrowed money. I hadn't gotten help. I hadn't announced it on social media or asked for approval. I bought my house in cash. That Christmas table wasn't the beginning of the drama. It was the final act. What you were really seeing was years of being overlooked, years of being measured against a golden child who could do no wrong, years of learning how to succeed without applause. Vanessa had always been the pride of our suburban Chicago household, the one my mother bragged about to neighbors, the one whose milestones were celebrated loudly and publicly. I was the contrast, the comparison, the quiet disappointment they assumed would never amount to anything impressive. But that assumption is where they went wrong. Because this isn't a random family argument or a petty holiday blow-up. This is a story about what happens when the invisible daughter stops explaining herself. When the underdog doesn't ask for validation. When success shows up unannounced and forces everyone to confront the narrative they were so comfortable telling. That Christmas dinner was just the surface crack. Tio understand how it really got there. How I went from being ignored at that table to owning a house no one knew about. You have to go back to the beginning. Looking back, the favoritism didn't start with one big moment. It was a slow, steady choice. Made so early it felt invisible at first. Vanessa was 4 years older than me, which meant she arrived fully formed in my memories. She was the pretty one, the loud one, the natural performer who could walk into a room and make people turn their heads without trying. She danced, she smiled on cue, she knew how to accept praise like it belonged to her. Our father, Robert, was technically present but functionally absent. An engineer with constant deadlines, always just about to leave, or almost done with this project. He worked late, traveled often, and when he was home, he was exhausted. Parenting fell almost entirely on my mother, Linda. And somewhere along the way, she decided which daughter was worth investing in. Vanessa got the spotlight. I got the shadows near it. The first time I remember realizing this wasn't temporary was the year of the trophy party. Vanessa had won a local dance competition. Not national. Not even state. Local. A plastic trophy with a gold-painted dancer glued to the top. My mother treated it like an Olympic medal. She threw a full-blown party. There was a cake shaped like a trophy, gold frosting dripping down the sides. Balloons in Vanessa's dance colors. The house packed with relatives, neighbors, friends of friends. Cameras flashing constantly as Vanessa stood in the center, smiling, posing, holding the trophy up again and again. "Look at her," my mother kept saying. "Isn't she incredible?" Relatives lined up to take photos. Someone suggested framing the trophy moment. I remember my cousin Mia leaning down beside me on the couch, watching the chaos unfold. "This is a lot," she whispered. "For a plastic trophy." I didn't answer. I was too busy trying to understand why my chest felt tight. Because earlier that same year, I had won a statewide writing contest. Hundreds of kids, judges, an actual certificate. My short story had been read out loud at school. My teacher had called my mom excited, telling her I had real talent. There was no party, no cake, no balloons. That I came home holding my certificate carefully, like it might tear if I breathed wrong. My mother was in the kitchen cooking dinner. "I won," I said quietly. She glanced at the paper, nodded once, and went back to stirring the pot. "That's nice, Claire," she said. "But look at what your sister is doing." That sentence didn't hurt all at once. Settled. It stayed. After that, the pattern became impossible to ignore. When I was 10, my mom promised me a picnic. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. I planned the food in my head, packed my backpack the night before, even picked out a book to read under the trees. I woke up early that morning, excited in a way I rarely was. She canceled it an hour before we were supposed to leave. "Vanessa needs to go prom dress shopping," she said, already grabbing her purse. I suggested, carefully, "We could go after?" My mother didn't even look at me. "Your sister's things are more important right now." Not always. Right now. That distinction mattered. It taught me that my needs weren't denied because they were unreasonable. They were denied because someone else mattered more. The piano recital hurt worse. I had practiced for months. Every afternoon after school, fingers aching, counting beats, starting over when I messed up. I wasn't great. But I was improving. I kept imagining my mom sitting in the audience, finally watching me. On the night of the recital, I scanned the crowd from the stage. Empty seat. I played anyway, hands shaking, heart sinking with every note. When I got home, my mother was already there. "I'm sorry," she said casually. "Vanessa had a volleyball game. She needed me more. People were counting on her. People were always counting on Vanessa. No one ever seemed to count on me." Mia noticed everything. After family gatherings, she'd find me sitting on the stairs or tucked into a corner with a book, while Vanessa laughed loudly at the center of the room. "She has no idea what she's missing out on with you," Mia would say softly. That mattered more than she knew. Because when you grow up like that, you start to wonder if you're imagining it. If you're just too sensitive, too quiet, too forgettable. But I wasn't imagining it. I was learning something fundamental and painful. In my own family, I wasn't the one they were rooting for. Vanessa stood in the spotlight while my mother polished it for her. And I was expected to stand nearby, close enough to clap, far enough not to be seen. To be why the time we hit our late teens, the favoritism stopped being subtle. It stopped being about attention and praise and turned into something far more tangible. Money, opportunity, access. That shift changed everything. When Vanessa was deciding what to do after high school, my mother sat her down at the kitchen table like it was a strategy meeting. Pamphlets spread out neatly. Community college programs, local schedules, flexible options. "Stay close, sweetheart," Linda said warmly. "Community college is perfect for you." What she meant was never really about education. It was about proximity. About keeping Vanessa within reach, under her wing, inside the orbit she controlled. And she paid for everything. Tuition. Gas money. Random just because. Expenses. Vanessa drifted through classes without much urgency, bouncing between majors, parties, and friend groups. She missed lectures, switched schedules, changed plans every semester. Why mother never called it indecision. She called it networking. When it was my turn, the conversation barely happened. I told my mom I wanted to go to the University of Illinois. Digital marketing. A real program. A real future. She didn't even look up from her phone. That's expensive, she said. Think smaller. That was it.no pamphlets. No planning session. No, we'll figure it out. My father muttered something about scholarships while already halfway out the door, late for work, as usual. And that was the end of it, so I figured it out myself. I applied for scholarships until my eyes burned. Every essay, every application, every rejection stacked on top of the next. I learned how to sell my own story because no one else was going to. I took a part-time job at a coffee shop before I even moved out. I learned how to steam milk perfectly, smile at rude customers, and do homework during 10-minute breaks. I learned how exhaustion felt when it didn't come with applause. That rhythm, work, study, repeat, became my life. The difference between us showed up clearly at graduation. When Vanessa finished her associate degree, my mother made it an event. She booked a nice Italian restaurant downtown. Invited extended family. Ordered appetizers without checking the prices. She stood up mid-meal, raised her glass, and gave a proud toast to her firstborn. About perseverance. About potential. About how far she'd come. Across the table, Mia caught my eye. We shared a look over our soda glasses. The kind of look that doesn't need words. When I graduated from the University of Illinois, it was quieter. I walked across that stage with honors stitched into my sash, carrying every late night, every double shift, every sacrifice in that single moment. I scanned the crowd anyway, out of habit. After the ceremony, my friends posed with their families, arms around shoulders, parents crying and laughing at the same time. I checked my phone. One text from my mom. Congrats, honey. Your sister is swamped at work. You should call her and tell her all about it. No dinner. No toast. No celebration. That was the moment it finally clicked. If I waited for my family to celebrate me, I was going to be waiting forever. After graduation, I moved into a small Chicago apartment with thin walls, drafty windows, and a kitchen barely big enough for one person to stand in. But it was mine. I took an entry-level job at a marketing agency and lived off discounted groceries, recipe apps, and carefully color-coded spreadsheets. Damn, why mother called often. And every call somehow circled back to Vanessa. Her bonuses. Her promotions. Her next move. Whenever I tried to share something about my own life, the response was automatic. That's good, my mom would say. But have you heard what Vanessa is doing? So I stopped offering details. I let her assume I was just getting by. It was easier that way. Safer. If she didn't know, she couldn't dismiss it. And somewhere in that quiet space, something solid began to form. When your own family treats you like the backup plan, sometimes the only choice you have left is to become so stable on your own that no one's opinion can touch you. I just didn't know yet how far that determination was about to take me. 3 years before that Christmas dinner, the one where everything finally exploded, there was another holiday night that mattered just as much. It was cold. The kind of Chicago winter cold that cuts through your coat no matter how thick it is. And back then, I still cared deeply about my mother's opinion. I still believed that if I worked hard enough, built something impressive enough, eventually she'd see me that week. I had just completed my first major project at the agency. It was a campaign for a mid-sized brand trying to reach younger customers online. I poured myself into it: strategy, content, targeting, timing. When the numbers came in, sales jumped 30%. My boss called me into the conference room, pulled the results up on the screen, and actually clapped. "This," he said, smiling wide, "is the kind of work that gets people promoted." I floated back to my desk afterward, heart pounding. For the first time, it felt like maybe I was finally building a life that mattered. Something real. Something undeniable. So I decided to go to the family dinner. I wanted to share it. I wanted them to know I wasn't just surviving. I was succeeding. The scene was familiar. Warm lights glowing through the windows. The smell of food heavy in the air. My mother commanding the kitchen like a general, assigning tasks, correcting everyone. Vanessa arrived late as always. New hairstyle. New boots. New story about something exciting that had happened to her on the way over. We sat down. Plates filled. Small talk flowed. Then Aunt Donna turned to me. "So Claire, how's work going?" This was it. My moment. I told them about the campaign. How it went viral in its niche. How the client extended the contract. How the agency was using my strategy as a template. How I'd gotten a bonus. Mia lit up immediately. "That's huge," she said. "That's like real career stuff." For a brief, fragile moment, the table went quiet. Everyone was listening, and then my mother tilted her head and turned to Vanessa. "Speaking of moving forward," she said brightly, "did you hear about Vanessa's new SUV?" The conversation snapped away from me like a rubber band. Suddenly everyone wanted to know the model, the color, the deal she got. Vanessa laughed, soaking it in, launching into details. My accomplishment disappeared into the space between sentences. Mia met my eyes across the table. I saw it in her face before she said anything later. "I saw that," she whispered. "I'm sorry." As if that wasn't enough, Aunt Donna found me during cleanup, cornered in the hallway between coats and clutter. "Your mom just wants you to be happy," she said softly, like she was offering wisdom. Then came the familiar advice. "Don't focus so much on work. Men want someone who can balance career and family. Vanessa's not intimidating. You don't want to make it hard for yourself." It was the same impossible standard every time. Work too hard and I was wrong. Don't work hard enough, and I was a disappointment. Somehow, I was always the one expected to adjust. On the drive home, my mother rode with me. The heater rattled. City lights blurred past the windows. She stared straight ahead. "Your sister is really getting her life together," she said. "New car. Steady job. Good man." Then, without looking at me, "You should think about settling down too. You're not getting any younger." Something clicked into place then. Not anger. Not sadness. Something quieter. Solid that I realized I could chase her approval for another 10 years and still end up in the same conversation. Still listening to the same comparisons. Still explaining myself, so I stopped playing. I stopped giving detailed updates. He nodded. Smiled. I let them assume whatever they wanted. And privately I built. I doubled down at work. Took on bigger accounts. Learned how to turn trends into strategy, how to pitch clients, how to lead teams. Junior roles turned into management. Our agency landed national brands. My title grew. So did my paycheck. I started investing, slowly, deliberately. Index funds. Automatic transfers. Long-term thinking. While friends posted bar tabs and weekend trips, I lived like I was still broke. Meanwhile, Vanessa bounced between jobs. Clothing sales. Office assistant. Event coordinator. My mother called it brave and adventurous. I saw the pattern. Vanessa always needed help, until the next paycheck. My mother complained, but the money always flowed. Then one day my mother called with excitement in her voice. "Vanessa's buying a house," she announced. "We're planning a family celebration." And just like that, I was pulled back into their spotlight. Carrying a secret they never saw coming. My mother turned Vanessa's mortgage approval into a full-blown event. The family group chat exploded in all caps. Backyard cookout. Housewarming. Our girl did it. When I arrived, there were house-shaped balloons tied to the patio railing and a giant cardboard key propped against the fence. Someone had ordered a congratulations cake with Vanessa's name written in looping frosting across the top. Vanessa held court, of course. She described the place like it was a palace. 3 bedrooms. Finished basement. Cute little yard. Only 20 minutes from the lake. Every detail delivered with practiced pride. My mother hovered nearby, beaming. "We're so proud," she kept saying. "She works so hard. She deserves this." I slipped inside to grab the ice bucket, grateful for the quiet. That's when I heard my mother's voice, low, urgent, coming from the dining room. "I just don't know how you're going to keep up with all of this." I stopped, Vanessa sat at the table with a thick envelope open in front of her. Papers spread everywhere. Numbers, statements, reality. My cards are basically maxed, Vanessa said, shrugging. And there's the car payment. Now the mortgage. My mother sighed. If you don't buy now, I guess you'll never get in. Exactly, Vanessa said quickly. Everyone my age is buying. You know how that looks. There was a pause. I'm short for closing costs, Vanessa added. Around 10 grand. Maybe more. I held my breath. Maybe you could pull from savings, Vanessa said carefully. Or your retirement. Just this once. Just until I get my promotion. The phrase hit me like déjà vu. Just this once. I'd heard it before. When homework was late. When rent was due. When phone bills, parking tickets, emergencies appeared out of nowhere. Just this once had been a bridge Vanessa crossed her whole life. My mother didn't hesitate. I'll see what I can move around, she said. Maybe put some on my card. I stood there, ice bucket heavy in my hands, and remembered something else. Years earlier, I'd asked my mother for a few $100s for a security deposit. Had the job. I just needed help bridging the gap. It's important you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, she told me. I remembered every extra shift I picked up after that. Every weekend I skipped. Every dollar I saved while my mother quietly erased Vanessa's consequences. I went home and opened my laptop. I logged into my accounts. My investments. My savings. Numbers stared back at me. Bigger than I'd ever allowed myself to really see. Years of working. Saving. Quietly investing. While my mother poured money into Vanessa's appearance of success, I had built something real. The idea didn't arrive as a fantasy. It arrived as math. A few weeks later, I met a realtor in a small lake community. The bungalow had big windows, a wide porch, and water visible through the trees. Walking inside made my chest ache in the best way. 3 bedrooms. An open kitchen. An office overlooking the lake. No shared walls. No upstairs neighbors. My financial advisor reviewed everything and smiled. You've done the work, she said. You can afford this. You could even pay cash. So I did that. I wired the money. No loans. No co-signers. No desperate calls to my mother. When I stepped into the empty living room for the first time, it was silent. No traffic. No neighbors. Just water and my own breathing. I had stepped into a life nobody had seen coming. Christmas at Vanessa's house looked like a holiday commercial. White lights twinkled across the living room. A massive tree hung with perfectly matched ornaments filled the corner, and the smell of cinnamon and baked sugar drifted through every room. My mother, Linda, moved through the kitchen like she owned the place, directing the ovens, checking the drinks, ensuring everyone felt impressed. I parked down the street in my old hybrid, considering turning around. But I wanted to go. I wanted to see, to be seen, and maybe, just maybe, to finally matter. Vanessa opened the door in a red sweater dress, flawless makeup, and that practiced smile. Her first words weren't exactly warm. You look nice, she said. Kind of simple but nice. I smiled politely and stepped inside. The dinner was loud. Plates piled with food. Conversation bouncing over mashed potatoes and roasted turkey. I faded to the background, offering vague answers about work and the city, until halfway through my second bite. Then it began. Mother lifted her glass and tapped her fork on the table. The room quieted. She praised Vanessa, her voice warm, rehearsed. The house, the future, stability, everything. Then she turned to me, voice too loud for casual conversation. Your sister bought a beautiful house. When will you finally settle down? Awkward laughter, raised eyebrows, Mia's wide eyes. Vanessa piled on instantly. When are you going to stop acting like a college kid and get your life together? You can't live in that tiny apartment forever. Forks froze. Plates clinked. And then I smiled. Calm. I'm actually already settled, I said. I just didn't invite anyone who doubts me. Mother laughed, confused. What are you talking about? You're renting. I let the bomb drop. I'm not renting. I bought a house 9 months ago. 3 bedrooms, office, yard right on the lake. Paid for it in cash. The room went silent. Forks paused midair. Eyes widened. My uncle froze mid-sip. My mother's smile slid off her face entirely. Vanessa stared. You bought a whole house in cash. No one likes a liar. Mia spoke up. She's not lying. I've been there. It's real. It's beautiful. Mother snapped. Why wouldn't you tell the family? Every time I tried to show you my life, I said evenly, you changed the subject to hers. Your sister worked so hard, Mother shot back. You could at least be happy for her instead of trying to one-up her. I let the financial truth land. What I'm not happy about, I said, is you pretending you did it on your own while you drain your savings and load up credit cards. Vanessa barked. That's none of your business. You're spying. That's pathetic. Pathetic, I countered. Is Mom telling me I couldn't have a few hundred for a security deposit because I needed to stand on my own 2 feet, then lighting herself on fire financially to keep your image intact? I've been standing on my own 2 feet for years. You've been standing on her bank account. Mother flinched. That's enough. You're ruining Christmas. Shrugged. You ruined Christmas the moment you decided to use it as a stage to humiliate me. I'm just finally answering back. Vanessa hissed. So you think you're better than me now? I don't think I'm better than you, I said, standing bag in hand. I think I stopped playing a game that was rigged from the start. Mother demanded I stay. I looked at Mia. She nodded. I'll walk you out. 3 weeks later, the group chat was silent. No more all caps Vanessa praise. Mia texted. You're basically family legend now. I sat at my kitchen table in my lake house, finally feeling peace. I invited Mia's family for the weekend. Aunt Donna even apologized. I should have spoken up sooner. Vanessa's world, by contrast, began unraveling. Credit cards tipped into unmanageable debt. Her expected promotion never came. Company layoffs hit, and she was first to go. The house became a burden. Eventually, she sold it to cover her debts. Her dream home became the cost of maintaining an image, and why Mother called repeatedly. Voicemails evolving from anger to pleading to finally apologetic, even requesting I loan Vanessa money. I realized then that an apology cannot erase years spent shrinking yourself. I set my boundaries. I spent my whole life being overlooked, expected to sacrifice. I'm not doing that anymore. I love you, but I'm done. Fewer calls, no financial conversations, no guilt trips. When ignored, numbers were blocked, chats muted. Peace was now my priority. I poured energy into work, friendships, and volunteering at a women's center, teaching budgeting, resumes, and marketing for side hustles. I recognized pieces of my own story, ignored, responsible, assumed fine, and turned them into lessons for others. Being the invisible child doesn't mean you're powerless. Sometimes it means you quietly build a life strong enough to walk away. If you grew up feeling like the background character in your own home, my story is proof. You can choose yourself, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. You are allowed to build something they never saw coming and keep it safe from the doubters.